Hi handsome and welcome to my 61st video. Edania has finally released, so I thought it would be a good idea to finally talk about it. This is less of a comprehensive review and more of a first impressions, so if I miss something that is relevant to what I will be talking about, do let me know in the comments down below. I will structure this video by talking about specific parts of the game, starting with the obvious hit, the visuals. I mean, it is BDO. Of course it's going to look good. I think that they managed to come up with a unique look for the zone, something we haven't really seen before, as it is definitely way more fantasy than the zones we've had in the game so far, which I do appreciate. It reminds me just a little bit of Elden Ring in a good way, and I also like how visually distinct each castle area is from each other. You have Jordine's Frost Flame, Rusalka's Corals, Gafra's Lava, and Slar's Jagged Rocks, and then the safe zone part which looks untouched by the demons, giving it a nice touch of what the zone could have possibly looked like if the demons weren't here. The only zone that seems a bit meh to me is Karshian's one, as it looks like a baby version of Kafra's, but that's fine by me, you can miss one. To this point I also want to talk about the exploration, which is something I also really enjoy in BDO, especially when an expansion is new. Exploring the different biomes, looking for secrets and these Genshin Impact-esque chests is a nice touch, and it gives you a reason to take in the signs and pay attention to your surroundings. Some of these chests are sadly bugged, at least as of right now, and some of the knowledge is a pain in the ass to get, although they did add a new glow to them so they are easier to spot if you have your effects turned on, which I found the hard way. Next up, I'm gonna quickly talk about the new gear. I think it is quite nice having these long form progression goals to hit. I like that the zones themselves feel like you are meant to be there to power up in a sense for the second zone, from there to the third zone, and even the Lifeskills crystals give you a goal to strive for. It always is nice having goals that are not just getting more silver for the next AP or DP, and as one of the few crazy people who decided that they will get their sovereign weapons by grinding for it, I do like this sense of progression. With that, let's also talk about the zones themselves. Now, full transparency, I don't have the gear to go to the third zone next to Ensla's castle. But then again, I don't think many of you do either. So even if that zone was spectacular, most of us aren't reaching it anytime soon. The first zone, I didn't really like at first, but it did grow on me and I really enjoy it now. The only two things here that I do not like is that the zone is currently bugged, at least until next week, where if you don't do the mechanic, which requires you to take these young spirits and kill them on this portal or circle type thing, I don't really know how to describe it, but you need to go and kill them and it's going to spawn a wave of mobs. If you do not do this, it never spawns another rift and you have to completely reset the entire zone. This is confirmed by Pearlbis in their known issue sections, so it will be patched out next week, but for now it still sucks. The other thing I'm not a super big fan of is what I will call the visual overload of the effects. Even on lower settings with lower effect opacity, the amount of visual clutter is off the charts, and you can't really turn off the effects because then you don't see the portal that you need to take the spirits to. The second zone I have only done a little bit of grinding at, admittedly, but so far I'm not really a fan. It feels like Orzekia without the cool bosses that make Orzekia stand out. Maybe I'm missing something here and I will have the same turnaround I had with the first zone when I realized I did some sort of mechanic wrong. Maybe it is bugged in some way, although if it is, it's not on the known issues section in the website. So if it is bugged, then not even Pearlbis knows about it. Maybe it's because I'm not really at the AP cap yet, I'm still slightly lower, so it will be better if I reach the AP cap. Whatever the reason may be, I think that this zone is a little underwhelming to me and I would even say it's boring. I do like the phase where the fish spawn after you kill the boss and you have to go to the top of the tower. I think that it's fun, but otherwise it's quite nothing burger to me. Again, no real faults on the third zone, but I have heard mixed reception of it. Some say it is complete Dokebi slop, others say it is a fun minigame tower spot. So if you are grinding here, do let me know what you think. Also, keep in mind, until next week, this spot is also bugged. It's also on their known issues, and the bug here is that if you die or if any character dies, then it kind of soft locks the spot and nobody can really grind there. Don't really know how it works because again I have not been here, but keep that in mind. Now all three of these spots have something in common that you might have already noticed. All of them are tower spots. And I'm sorry to tell you, if you are still holding out hope, the 2 zones we are missing, scheduled for September 10th, will also be tower spots, and you can very clearly see this with the Karshan's castle, where you have these empty platforms that are as telegraphed of a tower spot as you can possibly get. Now, I am of 2 minds about this. Some of you who have been around for longer and have seen my Decia video might remember me saying that I don't mind tower spots if they serve a purpose, which I still stand by, and which was 100% the case for Decia, even multiple purposes at the same time. It revived old zones not a lot of people were going to. It was different from its original. A lot of these spots were treasure spots, so it gave you more money if you were going for those as well. It gave veterans content when newbies were getting Land of the Morning Light, and it was a way to do Elvia without as much stress on the servers for the company as well. Now, in Edania, these spots also have a purpose. They make it easier for the castle owner to find you when you are grinding. That's it. That's their only purpose. You can't have regular pack-to-pack spots with big rotations, or else the castle owner has to chase you for 15 minutes and you can red out a spot that he missed. You can't have group spots because the castle owner can't bring his homies to fight you unless they are red players. And of course, because the castles also serve as boss arenas on the way to become a castle owner and take a lot of space by themselves, you aren't really left with a lot of it, even if you wanted to create a pack-to-pack grand spot in there, and the only solution is the same solution that we had in Honglim and Dokkaebi Forest. It is designed necessitated by the overall premise of the whole expansion. So let's talk about that premise. How do I say this nicely? The castle owner concept of the mechanic is ass. Now, I am writing this on Saturday before the first castle owners get chosen, but it is not hard to see that the mechanic that literally only supports 50 people per server per week in a fucking MMO is just completely ass backwards. This is content for streamers, oil princes, and the unemployed. So unless you fall into one of those 3 categories, forget about ever becoming a castle owner yourself. Sure, you can sneak into the fight and become cannon fodder, one of the 3 ritual sacrifices made to the gear lords. But do you want to be that? And once that fight is over, this content goes from being made for 50 people to just 5. And all of this is without saying the obvious. The most geared players on a server know each other. So you already know this content is going to be riddled with politics and will eventually just cannibalize itself the same way that Node Wars did. That also means that this content has a very short lifespan. The moment we get a new expansion with new gear, you will no longer have a single chance of fighting back if an Edania comes for your ass in one of the earlier zones, which will just turn this into an expansion for griefers. Now, here's the thing. I don't even mind if the endgame PvPers have something to do, something that motivates them to get more gear, something they might want to achieve. But the problem is that everyone else suffers because of them. Again, the main reason there are no group spots, why we are getting 5 solo tower spots, why the Lifeskills are basically non-existent in the expansion, and yeah, I will get into that in a second, the main reason why all of that is pushed aside is because Pearl Abyss decided to make an entire expansion centered around the top 1% of the top 1% of the player base. Editing Luneye coming in hot, because ever since I wrote and recorded this, we did actually have the first fight for the Edania, and all I can say is, what an actual shit show. I mean, on EU, the second castle, the Rusalka's one, was probably the only one that actually happened the way that Pearl Abyss is intended. The first castle, we had a single person show up, so they won the castle by default. How the actual fuck does something like that happen? You tell me, I have actually zero idea. And then, of course, you probably already know, the third castle's owner is, or maybe was, LEDUCK, who won by doing 0 damage and instead hiding on top of a pillar and waiting out the clock. How does this make it past testing or literally any playing of the game. And of course, in Pearl Abyss's infinite wisdom, they decided to ban LEDUCK for exploiting. Just don't put that pillar there? Is it that difficult? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? The other thing that I also wanted to mention, because now that we actually know how it is, I think that Edania is very hit or miss, what kind of person it is. From what I understand, on Southeast Asia, one of the Edanias is a maniac, player killer, so there it is a bit more difficult maybe to grind. On EU, LEDUCK was just chilling, and our Jordan's owner is also the super chill guy. I mean, this was the interaction that I had with him. So yeah, even that like idea of PvP is not really there. At least not yet. And this brings me to another topic I wanted to talk about. Edania is the rich get richer expansion. This is partially because of the combat overhaul that changed the way the money is generated, which is not really the expansion, but at least in the case of Edania, this does make sense, since you need to entice people to grind here, otherwise the entire expansion crumbles like a house of cards and never works. What I am talking about here is three things. Obviously, the entire castle owner mechanic and the Marni realm that gives you tax if you are a castle owner, but also the deboss dropping in Edania and the armor hammers from the last two Edania spots. The Marni realm is what it is. At least it's not super expensive for the player, although it is used more because of how crowded some of the spots are than just because of the castle owner mechanic, at least for now, although I'm sure that will change. The deboss are a bit of a double-edged sword. Yes, they are crashing in price, which makes it easier for new, mid and even some late game players to catch up. But a lot of these players get locked into the Karazat trap, which must feel pretty bad. And also, deboss are becoming cheaper, also means that the money from all the spots, starting from like a regular Ash Forest all the way to Ulukita, is going to be lowered by the endgame players. This then narrows down the options of these players into essentially non-deboss spots, or just forces them to take the L on the deboss themselves. It is not a good feeling, I can imagine, but at least it comes with the upside of cheaper progression. The hammers though are a complete mystery to me. Why are players in essentially full-TED armor dropping hammers to enhance your duo to try? It is the most bizarre redistribution of wealth that I have ever seen. We had the opposite happen with the blue J hammers like a year ago for your deboss, which I really liked and which is what you really should want to do when it comes to game design, because you are giving the mid and early and late game players something that the end game players want, so it redistributes the wealth from the end game players to everyone else, which is what it should be, because that's how catch-up mechanics work. This is like the opposite of a catch-up mechanic. Sure, the player paying for the hammer saves between 600 mil and 1.6 bill depending on the current price of the hammer per click, but they are directly handing that silver over to the endgame player, meaning that the gap between them gets wider, not narrower. You could maybe argue that you can grind a zone that drops this with less gear and get those for yourself, but how many people will go out of their way to grind inefficiently in a zone just to have a chance to save a couple billion? If they can even muster up the AP for that zone in the first place. The counter argument to this is, oh, but the armors will get cheaper. Well, who is selling those armors? Even then, the money still goes to them. And since we are talking about armors, I suppose we should also talk about the DEC Tuvala. The only term for this I can think of is bait and switch. I have no clue whatsoever why Pearl Abyss didn't announce this at Heidel Ball, unless they literally didn't conceive of it back then. To be clear, I have absolutely zero problem with the armor being in the game in and of itself. In fact, I am in favor of it. This sort of catch-up mechanic was desperately needed, especially since we were only ever getting more AP for the last year or so if you are a new or mid-game player. Of course, this riled up the classic mob of the same people who always get up in arms where new players get something new, and I just want to say that I am not one of these people and I will do my best to distance myself from them, because the only type of player this change has hurt, and the reason why this is called a bait and switch in my opinion, is the person who was just on the cusp of reaching Edania, who bought their tri or maybe even 10 armors like a week or 2 weeks ago for way more money than today, who now feels betrayed because if this got communicated better and earlier, these people wouldn't have most likely gotten this item in the first place and would have just waited for it. Endgame players really shouldn't care about this because you motherfuckers had those items for years now. And the new to mid-game players only ever benefit from this because chances are they don't have those armors yet. Alright, that leaves us with one part of the game that we have yet to talk about. Life skills. I mean, this is just sad really. The Rusalka crabs needed for your new life skill crystals are just tragic. You're making like 500 million an hour at the best. This spot needs to be giga buffed. Whether it's by dropping more stones, or more regular coral pieces, or increasing the drop rate of Rusalka corals, or whatever. It needs to be buffed, otherwise it is going to join the company of Dead Tree Essence, Blue Whale Oil, Coral Crystals, and other such permanently bottlenecked items. The fact that you need 30 of those corals for a single perfume is also wild to me, since it completely kills the profitability of even attempting to make that alchemy recipe in the first place. As it stands, people will go here for the Lifeskills crystals and then leave forever. The only other real addition to Lifeskills are the Kafras trees, which are at least good money, and I have very little bad to say about them besides maybe the terrain around them being kinda bad. But it's all lava around there, so I'm gonna give it a pass for thematic purposes. But they are essentially the only good life skill rotation added to the game. I was hoping that the Kafra snakes would have a good rotation, or even just a rotation at all, but they only appear a handful at a time next to the sanctuary. Maybe, and I hope I'm right on this one, they will appear in one of the last two castle zones, as those are currently devoid of life, and they are Kafras snakes after all. But as it stands, all we really got is Kafras tree rotation, maybe some vanadium and titanium rocks if you really stretch it, although those are not great either, and the crabs. Besides just acquisition, we have one Edania elixir with a harmony that everyone is making it now, 2 perfumes that will be bottlenecked to no end, and one new trade crate, with some workers and of course new fish. But that's it. No hunting spots, no cooking recipes, most of the mobs in the expansion just serve as set dressing, and the life skills continue to be seen as secondary content. I have one more rant prepared for you guys, something that I've had on my chest for a very long time. Dear Pearl Abyss, I know you're not watching this, but please, can we, for the love of God and all that's holy, stop calling life skill gear content? Crystals aren't content. Prion is not content. None of this shit is content. It's gear or equipment, if you will. The thing that should be the gateway to content, the thing that should unlock new content, not thing that is content on its own. And by the way, I have the similar thing for workers. They are not the life skills. Stop fucking pretending that a fucking node that you can get without having a single point of EXP in any life skill is a life skill. I just cannot stand the way that they use these words when it comes to life skills. I just want something new to do that isn't complete griefing or the only new addition. I am begging at this point. As a summary, I think Edania is largely exactly what people expected. An expansion that hinges on the success of its primary game mode, which only a select few are going to experience and even fewer will enjoy. And because of this concept alone, Everything else had to either adjust or be ignored. There is nothing wrong with this on its own, as you need to always prioritize certain players over others, else you end up creating content nobody likes, but when you end up prioritizing the top 50 players in a server over everyone else, it definitely raises some eyebrows. The least I can say is that I'm having fun grinding for my sovereign weapon, and we got at least one new good Lifeskills spot, but once I get the weapon, this will not be a place I will most likely return to very often, if ever. And that is all I have for you, handsome. Sadly, yet another kind of bittersweet, borderline doom pose of a video, so I do apologize. Next time we are leaving the land of contemporary updates and back into the Iron Pain challenge, which has laid dormant for a few months now, alongside with some other challenge content that I have ready for you. Do let me know what you think of the expansion, if you agree with what I had to say or not, or if I'm completely off base and missed something that you understand better than I do. Remember to like and subscribe, and enjoy your grind.